Welcome to another episode of our live stream, My Journey to the Trinity. My name is Hussein. Happy to be with you, and I'm really happy to have with us our brother Robert Spencer, who hasn't been with us for a while, and it's always great to have him with us. Welcome, brother Robert. How are you?
It's good to see you, but you said your name was Hussein, and it says Steve right there.
Well, you know what happened. This gives me a good opportunity for some self-pity. To explain. Um, when I was a kid in school, I grew up in the U.S. and when I was a kid, my name is Hussein. We hadn't had Barack Hussein yet or Saddam Hussein, and so everybody used to call me Hussein, Houston, like Houston, Texas. And it just became a little bit unbearable for me. So I just said, just call me Steve. So
I understand. It reminds me, do you remember Harun Mogul?
I know, I'm not sure him in particular.
Yeah, Harun Mogul was one of the Islamic apologists in the whole network a few years back. He's kind of disappeared. I don't know what he's doing now, but he was a champion whiner. And I am not comparing him to you, not in the slightest degree.
It's okay. I'm in the
wrote
running.
A column where he spoke about how there was so much Islamophobia at Starbucks that when he would go into Starbucks and get a cup of coffee and they would ask his name, he would say it was Dwayne. And so I thought that was just hysterical. And I don't go into Starbucks, but I would go into places where they ask your name for the order. And I started saying my name was Harun. And I was expecting all this Islamophobia to break out, people screaming and cover and saying, "Oh no, it's a terrorist! Oh no, it's a brown person! Oh no, get him out of here!" And nothing happened. And they just gave my order, which said, written Harun on the cup and all. And I did this multiple times. And every time I did it, I would post the picture on Twitter because he was there whining about how America was so Islamophobic he couldn't even get a cup of coffee without changing his name. So anyway, that's the Harun Mogul story.
Well, I've got some tearjerker stories, and but no, if I force myself. And I have to force myself. I could look back and find maybe one or two occasions where borderline. And I grew up in the U.S. in a pretty predominantly German area where everybody's blonde hair, blue eyes, and I was an oddball just by being, a little darker than they are. And but I've never, I found. I've never experienced that racism, that Islamophobia, or whatever it is that people talk about, and I'm not saying it's not there. I'm not saying that there aren't issues or situations, but I think that somebody's making money on this. I think it's an industry, the victim industry. So I'm
very much so.
Yeah. So, well, it's awesome to have you on. Seriously, it's been a long time. And I just have just one little request of you today, and that is that I want to understand what's going on in the world. And so there's so much happening since we last talked, and so I think I want to start with something that the media is not. I'm not understanding what's happening there, but maybe you can kind of help us here. I'm going to put this picture up, and this is from your magazine, Jihad Watch.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the Bangladesh Muslim leader whose group spreads Hindu hate, becomes part of interim government, wants Sharia state. And, we've been watching a lot of what's going on in Bangladesh. I don't understand it. I know the prime minister was fled. Is there an Islamic element to this?
Very much so, yeah. This is a situation where there are a number of groups that are vying for power after Sheikh Hasina, the former prime minister, fled the country. Although she's saying she's going to come back and reassert order, I'm not sure she has the ability to do that. But the guy whose picture you put up on the screen was Dr. AFM Khalid Hossein, sorry, like you.
Oh my goodness.
You could call him Steve, but he's Dr. AFM Khalid Hossein, and he is the vice president of Hefazat-e-Islam Bangladesh. And he's associated with the Bangladeshi Deobandi Islamic Organization. For those who are not aware, the Deobandi school is a very famous school of Islamic training and Islamic thought in India. And it is the basis for the Taliban. The Taliban in Afghanistan is a manifestation of the Deobandi school of thought. And so this guy, Dr. AFM Khalid Hossein, he is an exponent of the same point of view as the Taliban. And he is part of the interim government. There are others also who are part of the interim government in Bangladesh who want to make it into a Sharia state like the Taliban's Afghanistan, or like Iran or Pakistan to varying other degrees.
Dang. So has Bangladesh been borderline secular up until this point, or?
No, not really. I mean, yes and no. Bangladesh, of course, was founded in 1947, 48, at the time of the partition of India. And at the time of the partition of India, the plan was to have two secular states, one majority Hindu and one majority Muslim. Nobody was talking about establishing Sharia states. Not the founder of Pakistan, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, or anybody in India. The whole idea was that for cultural and societal reasons, it was considered to be prudent, although many disagreed, of course, but Gandhi thought this was a great idea. He was a big proponent of the partition. And the idea was to have a Muslim state and a Hindu state that would both be secular, but would be made up of majorities of the one or the other. And there was a lot of population that was transferred. Many Hindus moved to India. Many Muslims moved to what was then known as West Pakistan and East Pakistan. It was one country, although many, many thousand, I don't know how many miles, hundreds or thousands apart Pakistan is from Bangladesh, but it was one country originally, West Pakistan and East Pakistan. And many people moved from one to the other. That was not without strife and unrest, but also many Hindus remained in West Pakistan and East Pakistan, and many Muslims remained in India. Now, since then, especially under the rule of one of the former leaders of Pakistan, Muhammad Zia al-Haq, there was a decided move toward Sharia, and also a targeted persecution of the remaining Hindus in both West Pakistan and East Pakistan. In 1973, of course, a little before Zia, the Bangladesh broke away from Pakistan. And so what was known as East Pakistan is now Bangladesh. Anyway, none of them were states oriented according to religion, but then Zia made Pakistan into essentially a Sharia state. Although there are elements in Pakistan to this day that say, we still don't have full Sharia. We got to have full Sharia. We're going to overthrow the Pakistani government and create Sharia and create a Sharia state. And now there are people in Bangladesh trying to do the same thing. It's also very important to note that the Hindu population of both Pakistan and Bangladesh has drastically reduced since 1948, while the Hindu population of India, majority Hindu India, has grown exponentially. Consequently, many people are afraid that ultimately, jihad being what it is and Islam being what it is, the jihadis will take control of all three and create a Sharia megastate.
Yep. Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. It just has the feeling of something, that like something's happening there, that the news is being hidden. They're making it feel political and stuff, but it I always thought, there feels like there's something Islamic going on here.
Yes,
And
it's political, but that doesn't mean it's not religious. A lot of people in the West, they say, I'll tell you something. When I'm out speaking and I give a talk and I explain, for example, like how the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is religious, people always ask, well, wait a minute, isn't it all just political? And aren't you exaggerating the religious aspect? It's not really an either or, because Islam is political and people don't recognize that in the West.
Mhm.
Islam being inherently political, intrinsically political, then to say that it's a religious conflict is not to say that it's not political. It's only in the West where we think, oh, it's religious or political.
Yes.
Either all
Okay.
or all the other,
Yes.
but it can't be both. Actually, in Bangladesh, what's going on is both. Also in Israel, what's going on is both.
All right. Well, since we've been talking about Sharia, let's go to another Sharia stronghold, and that is England. And so, it's like I'm trying to be objective. I'm trying to look at just the facts, but it feels like something else is going on here.
Well, sure.
And
What's going on there is an Islamic takeover. And it's in full swing now because the left that counts Islam as an ally is in control of the country, in control of the government. And so there is what many people have remarked upon, the two-tier approach to these riots. It's undeniable. There has been rioting on both sides. And the so-called far right, or the people in Britain who don't want to see their country conquered and Islamized, they have been rioting. There have been peaceful protests, but there also have been some that got out of hand. And so the fault is on both sides. And there are people who should be arrested and prosecuted on both sides. But Keir Starmer, the far left new prime minister of the UK, and the whole British media, the whole British intelligentsia, they've acted like this is a one-sided thing, that innocent Muslims are being victimized by far right, which is always the term they use for the people they hate, far right extremists who are rampaging, and they don't say anything about the Muslim mobs that have been on video. This is not somebody's opinion. They're on video attacking innocent people, but there's no talk about prosecuting them. They're not being arrested. There's video of a police officer actually telling one of the Muslim mobs, we're here to protect you, and telling them, leave your weapons at the mosque. We'll take care of you. And all this outlandish stuff. Whereas the British people who think this is terrible, that the government's been fostering this mass migration that now threatens to make them a minority in their own country in the next few years, and threatens the creation of a Sharia state, they have no recourse. The government is not only not on their side, the government actually considers them an enemy.
I tell you, this is just those two words, far right.
Yeah.
Because that makes you think of Nazis and everything like that.
That's why they use it.
And it's here in America. It's the same thing.
I myself have been called far right for 100 years. And if you go to my Wikipedia bio, which is just a hate screed, or any of the attacks on me, they'll say, I'm some far right nut. And the thing is that I remember way back, probably before you were born, 20 some years ago, I would say this is not a left or a right issue. This is an issue of a threat to the entire civilization of the West, and the left and the right should both be fighting against it. But people would say, no, you're far right, and that's all there is to it. It's just it's a scare term that they use, like you say, because it makes people think of Nazis, and that you must be a person that no decent person would support. And yes, I was banned from entering the UK. That was in 2013. We appealed and were denied, and so I haven't tried to appeal again. But it has occurred to me maybe I should, but not that I really want to go there. I was banned from Britain for daring to say that Islam has doctrines of warfare against unbelievers. You can read the letter. I have it online. The UK Home Office sent me a letter, and it said, because you said Islam has a doctrine of warfare against unbelievers, you are not being allowed to enter the country. So a lot of people say, oh, this guy is so extreme. This guy is so hateful. This guy is so terrible. He was even banned from entering Britain. It sounds good. It's a good attack point, except when you find out that I was banned from entering Britain for saying something that's as obvious as saying water is wet. And then it looks a little different.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I remember there was one time there was an attempted suicide bombing in Sweden, and I had lived in Sweden, so I was very, interested. I got friends there and stuff. But the guy who did it, it was a Muslim guy, but he was trained in England, and it just makes me think England is becoming the Kandahar of Europe,
because nobody there is watching these people. Everybody's afraid of them. The government is afraid of them. The Prevent program, which has been for years supposed to be the program of the UK government to fight against jihad terrorists, it actually says that there isn't any jihad terrorism, that there's extremism on all sides, the far right as well as Islamist, which is a word that's designed to give the impression that real Islam is benign and cuddly and nobody needs to be concerned about it. But then there's this twisted version of Islamism, that is bad. And they really spend more of their time dealing with the alleged far right than they do with actual jihadis. And so the jihadis have more or less a free hand.
Well, I'll tell you, it sounds, you know what? There's something else going on in the background, I think. I just, we're not seeing, the puppet strings, it just feels like it just feels like something else is happening here. So well, let's go to to another one of our interesting situations.
Yes.
So it's like I don't know what to think. Before, during, after, it's like there's this war against Donald Trump. Like just yesterday, I was reading the New York Times. I don't read the New York Times. I'm sorry. That's a confession. I'm confessing, everybody. But there was like 6 anti-Trump things on the front page of the New York Times and 4 pro-Kamala things. And the same thing with the Washington Post. Same thing as the Los Angeles Times. Los Angeles Times is supposed to be a little bit more mellow, but they're not. And so, well, first of all, about this situation with Donald Trump, what was your impression when you saw, what happened there, when you first saw that?
Well, I suppose the first thing that I thought was that I was not in the least bit surprised. This has been a long time coming. It is very clear that the left wants Donald Trump dead, and this was essentially inevitable that somebody was going to try. I also wouldn't be in the least surprised if they were to try again, because this is a person, for whatever reason or for whatever complex of reasons, the left has targeted and wanted to destroy for 9 years now, ever since in 2015 he first announced his first campaign for president. And now this is his 3rd campaign for president, and we've seen the Russian collusion charge, that he was the stooge of Vladimir Putin and was being installed in the White House by the Russians so that the United States would turn in a direction favorable to Russia. That all turned out to be fiction. completely false, completely made up, and the making up of it was quite elaborate. And then there was the attempts to impeach him. Two of them. One of them really laughable because he was asking Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, about the activities of the Biden family in Ukraine and asking him to investigate. And there is abundant reason to investigate that. There's nothing corrupt about that. But it was presented as total corruption, that he's asking for the investigation of his political opponent, which of course is ironic now when we have the Biden administration involved in multiple attempts to prosecute its political opponent. But that's all okay. It's only wrong when the other guy does it, even though he didn't even do it. He was asking the Ukrainian president to investigate. Of course, no such investigation ever happened, and Trump was impeached for it. Then there was the January 6th thing, which was also completely fake, that you have video of the cops opening the doors to the protesters of the Capitol, letting them stroll in. They walk in. They're not insurrectionists. They don't have any weapons. They're taking selfies in the Capitol next to the statues and stuff. And these are the people going to overthrow the government. Some guy with Viking horns. You're talking about the most powerful government and powerful military on earth, and a bunch of people, an unarmed people strolling around the Capitol is going to overthrow the government. It's the most ridiculous thing ever. And not only that, it's even insulting in the sense that Trump himself said to the protesters, proceed peacefully and patriotically and make your grievances known. But he didn't say anything like storm the Capitol, overthrow the government. And yet he was portrayed as the ringleader of an insurrection that never was, and impeached even after his his term of office ended, which the idea was to get it to so that he would be prevented from running again. And that didn't work. And then there are all these criminal charges that are completely bogus, misdemeanors elevated to felonies only in Trump's case, and this rape charge by a woman who didn't even remember what year it happened, and it turned out to be exactly the way that a plot of a TV show that she admitted to watching avidly had a episode about. And he's still convicted, and so he's a criminal, he's a rapist, all these things, and it's completely bogus, and it's very third world in the sense that places that claim to be democracies or republics, and yet they jail the chief opponent of the regime and find all these trumped up charges about it. Yeah, Banana Republic. These are the kinds of things that happen in such places. The United States of America is supposed to have genuine free elections and genuine loyal opposition and mutual respect for the democratic process, such that there's a peaceful transfer of power. But the left and the Democrats are the enemies of that. They're claiming that Trump is, but actually the evidence is all on the other side. And anyway, none of that ever worked. He was still in the lead. So there was then the assassination attempt. Then that failed. They went to Plan Q or whatever, however many now, and that is to remove Biden in another undemocratic move and put in Kamala Harris. And right now we're going through this love affair with Kamala Harris, but at a certain point she's going to have to speak, and her lead will start to slip away. And now, of course, they could still cheat in November. And then Congressman Jamie Raskin was saying, even if he wins, we won't let him take office because he's an insurrectionist. All these things come back, And so I doubt that he will become president again, but I fear for what may happen if he is elected and then is not allowed to take office. But that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with fascists here who don't believe in a free political process, and so they're trying to stamp it out.
Dude, it was scary, but that made it scarier. So, dang, that, yeah, I remember just, when I first saw that, that he got shot right by the ear, and just like, bam, 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 and everything that happened. And then the New York Times went all friendly for about a half hour, on Trump, and the main and CNN and Washington Post and all of those communists. And then, but then instantly it turned back, and then they started doing those hearings. And I tell you, man, that was really scary to see the incompetence of the Secret Service, and to just, I thought that lady, the leader of the Secret Service, I thought she was going to actually not quit. She was so stubborn, but she did quit. But then when she quit, you know what? That bummed me out a little bit too, because it's like, okay, they threw her under the bus, but the rest of the thing seems like it's rotten.
Exactly. There's very deep corruption in Washington. And Obama started years ago to politicize all the organizations of the US government. It used to be that the civil servants, so-called, the people who served in the State Department or the Pentagon or the Secret Service or whatever, they were supposed to be above politics, or at least not connected to it. And they would do their jobs in an impartial manner. And that was all thrown out under Obama. And he started to stock all these offices, all these agencies with hard left ideologues. And so now we're seeing the result of that. What do I think about South Africa and the International Criminal Court? It's another corrupt organization that has the appearance of administering impartial justice, but is actually just another political arm of the international left. It's incredibly ironic that South Africa would have been the one chosen to do this, because South Africa is a human rights basket case where there are government officials who've called for the confiscation of white-owned farms, not with any compensation, just out and out theft. And there have been the murders of many white South African farmers with no prosecution of the people who were involved. As a matter of fact, there are many cases where it looks as if government officials are encouraging that kind of thing. So South Africa has nothing to say about human rights, but the International Criminal Court also, it's going after Israel, but it has ignored for years real human rights offenders, North Korea, Iran, so many others, and it's going after Israel on these bogus grounds. It's just another indication of how right now all the major international institutions and all the major agencies of the U.S., all the agencies of the U.S. government, the European Union, all the governments of Western Europe, they're all firmly in the hands of the international left. And like you were saying, there's something behind this, somebody pulling the strings. I don't know who it is, but I know what it is, and it's international socialists who don't believe in the nation state. They want to destroy nation states and create an internationalist, socialist, authoritarian regime. And so they hate the United States because it's the world's foremost nation state, and thus the foremost exponent of the whole idea of an individual nation state. And if they can destroy the United States, all the others will fall into line in their international conglomerate state that they want to establish. And then they hate Israel because Israel is a state also based on particularity. It's a Jewish state, and that's not acceptable to the international left. You can't have a state that's for one people, even though Israel has a very sizable Arab minority, 7 million Jews and 2 million Arabs in Israel. And there isn't any actual apartheid or any denial of rights to the Arab minority. They're just as much members of society as the Jews are. There's no difference whatsoever in terms of how the law is enforced or what the law says. But the idea of a Jewish state, because it's based on particularity, that sticks in the left's craw. They hate that because the left is a leveler. It wants to destroy all distinctions between people and make us all into carbon copy stamps of each other. Like take Mao's China during the Cultural Revolution. When I was a kid and Nixon went to visit China, and all the Chinese people, millions and millions of them, they were all dressed the same way. They all wore the little uniform. It was required because it was part of equity.
Mm.
Equity means everybody's equal. And so if everybody's equal, see, if your jacket is nicer than mine, then we're not equal.
Mm. Wow.
And so we all have to wear the same clothes.
Mm.
And
Wow.
that's what the left is all about, erasing distinctions between people. And Kamala Harris, who's a communist, she says, I want to make erase the difference of outcomes between people. That you might make more money than I do, or anything like, okay, take the money thing, and maybe you make more money than I do because you work harder, or you're smarter, or whatever, or because you know somebody and you got a nice cushy job. Any number of things could happen. But the fact is, if you say we're going to erase that distinction between people, then you're going to destroy human initiative. You're going to destroy the idea that, well, if I work hard, I might get ahead. I might be able to have a big family, or provide better for my family, or buy a nice car, a nice house, or whatever. And everybody's going to make the same no matter what. That's the leftist idea. So Israel is a particular state. Now you might ask, well, wait a minute. There are a lot of Islamic states. Why do Islamic states?
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
And a Jewish state is not, because the Jewish state is one nation. There's only one of them. There are 57 Islamic states, which of course enforce Sharia to varying degrees, but they're 57 members of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. And Islam is internationalist. As you know, the loyalty of a Muslim is not to his individual country, but to the Ummah. Yes. At least theoretically in Islamic teaching, that the global Islamic community takes precedence over any nationality. And so the left loves that, because they want to make an internationalist authoritarian state. Islam is authoritarian and Islam is internationalist. So it fits in wonderfully with the left's agenda in a way that Israel never does not, and never could.
This is our friend Tiger. He's from South Africa, so he's saying what you said about his nation is true. Yeah,
too, because apartheid was an injustice, but at the same time, all these people, left and right, were celebrating the end of apartheid and thought majority rule of Black South Africans is only just, and is going to create a better society for everyone. And instead, it's destroyed what was a beautiful country. Now, this is not a racial thing, or something about blacks versus whites. It's actually a Marxist thing. It's what's the tragedy of South Africa is that the Black South Africans who took over were Marxists. And so they have destroyed the country on a Marxist basis. And there are many, many people who want us to destroy the rest of our countries in the same way.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, you know what? Nothing can help us kind of turn a corner on some of these world events like Taylor Swift. And what the heck is going on there, man?
Well, there was a big jihad plot in Vienna. Taylor Swift apparently was over in Austria, and she was going to give 3 concerts. And an Islamic State ISIS jihad plot was discovered that caused the cancellation of all 3 concerts. Apparently, the Austrian officials thought that the plots were so advanced that they could not allow the events to go ahead, and figure they would be there and be able to prevent it. And one primary reason for that is that the plotters actually got one of their guys into the security planning for the Taylor Swift concerts. So a jihadi was actually hiring security guards for the Taylor Swift concerts.
Oh boy, yay.
And so it was very clever. You got to give him credit for cleverness. If the Islamic world ever turned away from jihad and devoted itself to human achievement, it's human building up instead of destroying, then it would do great things. You clearly got some very bright people here, but they had this idea nobody's ever had before, to infiltrate the security apparatus. And although actually, now that I say nobody's ever done that before, it's possible that they did infiltrate Trumps as well, not jihadis, but they filled it with incompetent people, which is one reason why the whole thing happened. And the guy wasn't stopped. But in any case, at the Taylor Swift show, they were going to have jihadis or jihad sympathizers, or at least useful idiots, manning the security checkpoints. And they were hiring people on that basis. So the whole thing, you couldn't ask, how did the jihadis get in here? It was, they got in here because the security team let them in.
Oh my goodness. Like I said, this stuff is all scary, but then when you hear it, it's like, dude, wow, because then you start seeing, well, there's a brain behind this. There's an actual plan. And dang, that is like, because I remember like there was the Ariana Grande concert in London, and there was a shooting there, and it was terrorist related also in London. Of course, in London it's going to be, but it's mind blowing that it's reached this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a friend that asked me, because he's asking a bunch of different people, and like, well, what's the next level, next steps you see in Islam in the world and stuff, evangelism, or just Islam, and I told him I'm scared for the Muslims, because when these European countries wake up, I don't know, I'm a little scared what's going to happen. The European countries have shown what they can do. And
if you have an Islamic Republic of Britain, an Islamic Republic of France, and they have nuclear weapons, the implications of that for the United States are pretty obvious, really, and not going to be pleasant.
Well, since we're on the subject of art, I'd like to hear what you have to say about this.
Yes. Well, this was, of course, at the Paris Olympics. There was a kind of mocking parody of the Last Supper with trans people and ugly people cavorting around. There they are. And it's very Last Supper kind of setup, although some people have said, oh, you Christians, you're just paranoid and have a persecution complex, because in the first place, there aren't 12 people there. There's more than 12. And you can see that. And this was supposed to be a celebration of Dionysus, the god of wine and revelry in ancient Greek mythology. And the idea is that Dionysus was celebrated because it's ancient Greek, and the ancient Greeks invented the Olympics. So that's what they were reaching for. That's the claim anyway. I don't necessarily buy it, but it's been going around. And the thing is, though, that even that does not change the very clear Last Supper imagery. It could be both. It's not necessarily an either or here, just as it's with the religion and politics business that we were talking about before. It's not an either or. And even also, it's important to note that in early Christianity, when Christianity was outlawed, many times it was not uncommon to speak of Dionysus, and it was really veiled language to talk about Christ, because he changed the water into wine, and thus you can see the connection with the god of wine and so on. So it was very clearly intended to be a mockery of Christianity, and it's kind of ironic. It's bitterly ironic, who's saying that what happened was there were ISIS plots, threats from ISIS, threats even from Hamas to attack the Paris Olympics, and the Paris Olympics have gone on in an atmosphere of extraordinarily high security. The French government, being what it is, being leftist and weak, even reached out to the government of Qatar and got Qatari police in Paris to help them guard the Olympics. And the threat was all from jihad groups. And yet, of course, that the Paris Olympic leftists who put together the opening ceremony, they would never dare to mock Islam in the same way.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yep. Many people have pointed that out, of course, and there's no doubt about it. The left, of course, loves Islam and is also afraid, and consequently will fall into line both ways.
Yeah, and that's just one little thing. You know, you can't see that, but that's a little girl.
Oh, who was there? Yeah.
And she was looking at that naked blue man, with his parts hanging out all over the place, and it's like, I mean, that's pedophilia.
Yeah. Well, of course, the left loves pedophilia. The left wants to sexualize children and break down all moral barriers. And people think, how could moral, and people ask me this, how could moral straight-laced Muslims go along with that? And it's true. There is a breakdown. There are cracks in the leftist Islamic alliance because the left doesn't like, the Muslims don't like the left's morality or lack thereof. And yet at the same time, there's also the deep resonance because after all, Muhammad sexualized children, and child marriage is taken for granted as good in Afghanistan and other areas because of Muhammad's example. And so when you have the left wanting to break down traditional Christian morality and sexualize children, well, there are Muslims who have no problem with that.
I just want to say too about the Taylor Swift situation. We talked about the Austria, but the London situation also had a Taylor Swift angle to it too, because those 3 girls that were killed by that guy, they were at a Taylor Swift music party or something like that.
That right? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I'm thinking it must be scary, to have.
Taylor should finance an initiative against jihad, but I'm sure she's not aware of it.
Well, and I think the New York Times is kind of lobbying her to support Kamala Harris right now, which I think she's already has. But yeah. So, but very okay. Wow. So we've covered a lot of ground here. Now I want to get to some stuff that we just haven't talked about it, but would like to hear from you about the situation in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
I have lots of friends there. I get regularly called. Very super terrible situation there right now, and just kind of like when you heard about. I guess I want, first of all, your first reaction when you heard what happened on October 7th.
Oh, well, I guess I don't remember, tell you the truth. I got to tell you also, unfortunately, when I personally hear about these things, the first thing I think is I've got to get up and get that onto Jihad Watch. Mm-hmm. So my first reaction is usually I got to go to work. I don't mean to trivialize the situation or to make it all about me. Since you asked me my first reaction.
No, I wanted to know that. Yes.
Work related. And of course, I've been doing this for over 20 years. So massive jihad massacres, they don't come as a terrible shock to me. I expect them. At the same time, this one was, of course, particularly revolting and gruesome, staggeringly cruel. And so as the details of it came out, I was just as appalled and nauseated as anybody else. The targeting of the music festival, the bitter irony of the targeting of the music festival, because it was a festival of peace, of leftists who would have, been glad to be friends with the Palestinian people in Gaza and so on. Just a terrible thing. I think that it will go down in history as one of the worst attacks on innocent civilians ever. And then, of course, what shocked me, what surprised me, was the reaction right after that, that public opinion was pretty much immediately turned away from Israel and focused on the perpetrators as if they were the victims. And this was clearly a planned effort that was planned long before October 7th, just as the October 7th attacks were planned long before October 7th, that there would be a public relations blitz to rally support for Hamas. And it's been wildly successful, such that what was inconceivable before October 7th, that you would have people in the West, people in the United States openly professing support for Hamas and Hezbollah. Now it's commonplace. People take it for granted. When I first started to post about the demonstrations, I called them pro-Hamas mobs because they were pro-Hamas mobs. They were agitating against Israel at a time when Israel was under a severe attack from Hamas. And many people said to me, you shouldn't call them pro-Hamas mobs. They're not for Hamas. They're just against Israeli policy. And I would say, well, there's really no difference at this point, because they attacked all of Israel. They didn't attack Likud or Netanyahu alone. They attacked the Israeli left as much as anybody else. And so, and there's no group of Palestinians out there saying, we oppose this. Everybody fell in line saying, yes, we're all for this. October 7th hailed it as a great jihad victory. So they were pro-Hamas. But anyway, nobody minds anymore when I say post a story and say pro-Hamas, because it's clear they say they're pro-Hamas. It's obvious. Everyone knows it now.
When you have the flag, that kind of shows you, what you see. That, and that was kind of my next question, is that, and this is what I've seen, is this really black became black and white became white. I mean, it was before, there was some gray. There's no gray anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right. It's obvious you're on this side or you're on that side, and as an ex-Muslim, and I'm I'm an evangelist to the Muslims and stuff. But I tell you what scared me is that the sympathy for Gaza, and I do have sympathy for Gaza. And like I said, I have friends that live there. Every day they're calling me 4 a.m, but that this is going to turn into a sympathy for Islam. Mm-hmm. And people are going to start converting to Islam. Well, and then I heard that's happening.
That's already going on. You had on TikTok, which of course is Chinese propaganda. You had all these American kids reading off the letter, Osama bin Laden's letter to the American people from October 2002, where he justifies 9/11. Somebody found it. I don't know who put them up to finding it or who was behind this, but it happened anyway. There are all these people reading portions of this letter on TikTok and praising Osama bin Laden. And The Guardian, the far left paper in Britain that had had the letter up ever since it was first published 21 years ago, almost 22, they took it down, which I think is a disservice from a historical standpoint. They should have kept it up there. But these people were expressing open support for Osama bin Laden. And in the letter, which I've quoted many times over the years since October 2002, when it was published, he says the first thing we're calling you to is Islam. He situates 9/11 in terms of an Islamic jihad. And so you have lots of young people converting to Islam, thinking that it's the side of justice, thinking that what they've been told by the American government all these years is wrong. And of course, the American government does lie a great deal and did tell us a lot of things that were wrong, like Islam is a religion of peace and all that. But the idea that Osama bin Laden is some hero, it's out there, it's happening, and it is indeed appalling and disturbing.
One thing, I don't know, there's a video of Sheikh Othman. He's famous in San Diego for his Heinz ketchup. Yes, ketchup and situation. But I was like taken aback by the thing when I saw it. There's these, blonde American girls come, and he says, "Do you believe in God?" And they said, "I mean, one God." And they say, "Yes, we do." He says, "You're already half Muslim. You're half Muslim already." And then he says, "And do you believe in prophets like Adam and Abraham and Moses and Jesus and Muhammad?" And they go, "We believe in prophets." Yeah. He said, "You're already Muslim. Just say this after me. Say, there's no God but Allah and Muhammad. La 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 la." Okay. They do it, and they said, "You're Muslim now."
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, these people don't realize they just put their foot in a trap.
Yeah.
And they just, I mean, it's done with so much finesse and so much deception.
Mm-hmm.
And the American, and I, of course, I'm really big into prophecy and stuff. I really see that there is an antichrist spirit that is against Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And God says, "I'm going to send a strong spirit of delusion for those who refuse to love the truth, so that they will believe a lie."
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are falling, hook, line, and sinker behind this thing.
Yep.
So, I mean, but to see it happen so fast, bam.
Yeah.
The way our
after October 7th, there's been a concerted push, and now Hamas is normalized, Hezbollah is normalized on the left, and nobody bats an eye. When it would have been inconceivable even on October 6th.
Well, we got this situation too.
Yeah, there's old Ismail Haniyeh and Ayatollah Khamenei, and of course Haniyeh was killed in Tehran to the great embarrassment of the Islamic regime. He was staying in a safe house that visiting presidents and dignitaries of that kind, of that level, stay in, and he was even killed there. Shows the reach of Israeli intelligence and really puts all of the Iranian leadership under threat. And so they have vowed to retaliate. The retaliation was expected on this past Monday. Nothing happened. People don't know yet if they have just delayed it and it's still coming, or if they just talked tough but are not able to retaliate. And I suppose we'll see.
Yeah, this is, and they replaced him with Yahya Sinwar.
Yes.
And then, I didn't get the picture, but also the fact that the previous Iranian president went down in a helicopter crash, in the middle of all of this. And it's just like, dude, you just can't keep up with stuff, man. Just bam, 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 bam. It just looks, and then of course we had the Lebanese Hezbollah,
Mm-hmm.
and they're one of their top leaders was also assassinated, at the same time. And and so it's just like things are just happening so fast. And I know we've already talked about this, but can you tell us a little bit about this guy right here?
Oh my goodness. Well, this is Tim Walz, and he of course is the Democrats' new vice presidential candidate for the upcoming presidential election. He is governor of Minnesota, and so he's close friends with Ilhan Omar, the congresswoman from Minnesota. He has appeared at events for the Hamas-linked Council on American Islamic Relations in company with Hatem Bazian, who has called for an intifada in the United States. Hatem Bazian is the founder, actually, of Students for Justice in Palestine, which is a group that is openly menacing and threatening Jewish students and pro-Israel students on campuses all over the country. And Tim Walz has never said anything about that, of course. He was happy to appear at this event with these people because he's got a very sizable population of Muslims in Minnesota, and he wants their votes. He's being portrayed as a mild-mannered high school teacher and coach, and called America's dad and all this nonsense. But he's actually a very dangerous Marxist and an aider and abetter of the global Islamic Jihad.
Okay, that was. Could you tell us a little bit about his church? Because I know he's also a church-going Christian too.
Yeah, he's a church-going Christian. Yeah, I wrote an article about his church yesterday. He goes to Pilgrim Lutheran Church in St. Paul, Minnesota, which is part of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, ELCA. And the Evangelical Lutherans have long been co-opted by the far left, hardly Christian in any functional sense anymore, but all they do is essentially parrot the left's agenda and put it in a pseudo-Christian context. And Pilgrim Lutheran, where Tim Waltz goes, is very much part of that. They have rejected calling God Father. They say you can call God all kinds of images, like God the hen and God the baker, but Father is not allowed, at least not without mother, and so on. And so they've departed from any form of traditional Christianity, Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox. They just don't really profess Christ at all. They profess the Democrat Party platform. They're all for the trans madness and the LGBTQ agenda and all of that. It's just, I don't know how Tim Waltz keeps track of whether he's at church or at a party meeting, because it's the same thing.
Okay. Yeah, trying to check all the boxes. And so just from what I'm seeing, with the media, because I went to journalism school. I got a degree in journalism. I was a reporter for like 5 years, 2 different newspapers. One of them was a Los Angeles Times affiliated newspaper. And so I kind of got a journalism bug, in me. And I tell you what, even though I'm a Republican and I'm conservative, I prefer when there's a conservative in office, because I like the fact that the media does its job. They hate us and they always, tear us apart. But what I hate, is when there's a Democrat or they're in love, like with Obama, when they start having a shiver up their legs, and it's happening again. And
Sure.
it's got here's the team, and the joy. This is the campaign of joy, because they want to do something about the Capitol. So it's joy. This is joy now. And,
also they portray Trump as angry.
Yeah.
And, of course, they don't show his rallies, but anybody who ever watches a Trump rally knows this guy's not angry. He's actually quite charming. And this is a big part of his appeal to ordinary Americans. But to the left, he's just enraged, and he's the candidate of rage and hate and, racism, Islamophobia, and all that nonsense. And so they are the campaign of joy. Yeah.
So what do you see? What do you see? It's not like you have to have a crystal ball. This thing has happened so many times. This love affair between, CNN and the Democratic Party and New York Times and everything, but, what do you kind of see with the campaign, the way it's going right now? We got 90 days, before this election,
Well, certainly the establishment media is the propaganda arm for the hard left. And so they will continue to be trying to put Kamala Harris over the finish line. And then there will likely be very many election irregularities, as there were in 2020. Wisconsin disallowed, I believe it was, mail-in ballots and then allowed them again. And also there's a couple of other states where I think they've got the whole fix in like they did before, so that Kamala will certainly win those states. And I expect she'll win the election. I hope I'm wrong, but it seems like the left, having thrown everything at Donald Trump and he's still standing, they're still not going to allow him to win the election. They'll cheat any which way. And if that doesn't work and he still wins, we already have Congressman Jamie Raskin saying we won't let him take office because he's an insurrectionist, and so they're going to try to maintain their power any way they can. And I hope it doesn't get ugly, but it very easily could.
And so, wow, yeah, that's scary too. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it is what
Yeah,
it is.
you
Now
know,
we know where we stand.
yeah, it's just like, yeah, the reality of this thing, just the way, I mean, you wish so bad that it's not like this, but it really is like this. The media really is in the tank for the Democratic Party, and
Oh,
unfortunately, some people still believe them, and a lot don't. But yeah, and they haven't interviewed her, haven't had a just a media press call where she invites the press because they know she's going to mess that up.
yeah.
And
Even if they ask her, what's your favorite ice cream flavor and all that, like they did with Biden, still, she's really not very intelligent and not very articulate, and it's going to show. And so they're going to try to cover that up. You're going to see very little of her speaking live, especially before any audience that could remotely include somebody who might ask her a tough question. It's all going to be scripted or pre-recorded.
do you think this was just something that happened the other day, when some Muslim were, or not just Muslim, they were leftists, they were saying, what is it? Kamala, you can't hide. We won't vote for genocide, and then she said, if you say that, Trump's going to win. And the New York Times, they just fell down on their faces in adoration of her because of this, But what about the hard left turning against her like that? Do you think that could happen?
Well, certainly they scared the Biden campaign so much that he betrayed our longstanding ally, Israel, and turned the U.S. government against it and gave $10 billion to Iran. So the U.S. government is now financing the jihad against Israel, and certainly aided and abetted the war of public opinion turning against Israel as well. So they were scared, the Biden people, and it's essentially the same people with Harris. On the other hand, the reason why the New York Times was so thrilled about this is because Harris's answer really was good. I don't know who gave it to her, but it's good because it might have been a scripted incident, because they have been the anti-Israel leftists have been exercising outsized influence on the Biden campaign, and nobody has stopped and said, wait a minute, what are they going to do? Vote for Trump? They were never going to vote for Trump. They don't have anywhere else to go. But Biden didn't have the courage to say, or the Biden's people that were running him didn't have the courage to say, you don't have anywhere else to go. Shut up. As people have told conservatives for decades, Republicans have no trouble saying that to conservatives. But the left, it's a different story. And so the anti-Israel left was essentially in the driver's seat and running the Biden regime. But when Biden dropped out and Harris then tells them, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Vote for Trump? Then they're thrilled. And that's why they fall at her feet in adoration, because they feel like she's solved the problem. That they will realize now that they don't have anywhere else to go, and they'll stop bothering her. And so we'll see. The anti-Israel left is very fanatical and tenacious, and they might still keep showing up and still keep saying, oh, she's guilty of genocide and all that. And that would be very interesting. But I expect now they're going to go quiet and fall into line.
Wow. Okay. Well, brother, I think we solved, or at least have brought understanding to most of the big world issues facing facing humanity now. And is there anything that I didn't bring up that you would like to bring up that maybe I'm missing?
Covered a lot of ground here. It was good.
Yeah, it just I tell you, it's like so much. It's just like it's feeling like apocalyptic, you know. Eh,
Yeah, read
so,
Ezekiel 38 about Israel's global isolation.
well, you know what? I just did the last 3 days. I've been doing Ezekiel 38 and 39. You
I
know,
didn't know that, but there you go. Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm a total. I totally believe we're there, and so yeah, I really think that that antichrist spirit, and then what God's going to do, and so that's it. We know the end of the book. We know that the Lord Jesus is the King of Kings ultimately, because whoever is president, it's like we serve a king that's higher, and eventually they're going to turn against the Christians.
Oh, yeah.
And this really looks like that's what's happening.
Yes.
It really is. It's
No doubt about it.
antichrist. Yeah. So, all right, brother. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to join us today. And by the way, I've only been banned on Facebook once, and it was because of you. And so you can wear that as a badge of honor.
Oh,
So,
I got so many. Too many badges of honor.
and but I also have, you are my my all-time highest views video for my program. So
Oh, that's great.
so
Why don't you break that with this one?
Jesus' name, thank you so much for taking some time to be with us and to help us understand some of this stuff, because it's hard to know what to think. It's hard to know who to believe, or So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
And I hope we can have you again soon, maybe after the election or something.
Sure.
To kind of
Yeah, hey, I got a book we could discuss that's coming in September. You can pre-order it now. I just got some copies myself. It's called Muhammad, A Critical Biography. And it is, I don't know if anybody's ever done this before. It's going through all the Islamic traditions about Muhammad and showing the contradictions, inconsistencies, all the evidence that it's myths and legends and not history. So a lot to talk about in there, I think.
look forward. Now, can we order that? Is that already on the market?
It's Amazon now. You can pre-order it, and it'll be out September 10th.
How exciting. That's awesome. I know that I so appreciate your Quran that you did. That was really so great, so praise the Lord. Really looking forward to reading that. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, brother. God bless you. And thank you for everybody that was with us today. And it's like Jesus often spoke about world events. He spoke about the political situation. John the Baptist spoke about it also. And so we have to be aware of the times that we're living in. And so praise the Lord, we have people like Brother Robert who can, help us to see those things in the correct light. And so, all right. And if you haven't done it, I just want to show one thing. I want to show one thing here real quick.
Hi, folks.
Sorry, I'm so unprofessional, but this is my new book. Okay. And yes, that's my beautiful wife on the cover. And the book is called Eve Didn't Have a Name Yet. And so it doesn't have anything to do with Islam, except for I do make a reference to the best of deceivers. But because we do talk about the serpent, and so so anyway, my book's also available on Amazon too. So, all right,
excellent.
Thank you so much. God bless you, brother. And for those, if you haven't done it, please do it now. Jesus, help me. Jesus, forgive me. Jesus, come into my heart. Jesus, help me. Jesus, forgive me. Jesus, come into my heart. We love you, but more importantly, he loves you. So be blessed. Have a wonderful day. And God bless you. Thank you. Thanks.
If you have ever wondered why dull apologists lie so much, it's because on a rare occasion that they tell the truth. This happens.
One of the reasons I accepted Islam was the scientific miracles. I'll be honest with you. And now we know that this whole scientific miracles was absolute nonsense.
That the standard narrative has holes in it. That's what I'm going to say.